Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. Man, we are banging through these podcasts this week, Mike.
We are pushing them out. We finished The Kill Artist by Daniel Silva. We've got Red Sky Mourning Part 1. And dude, we are coming in hot with some of the best writing out of Jack Carr I have ever seen. One of the most thrilling action sequences I've ever seen. An amazing president, an amazing epilogue. So much happening in Part 2 of Red Sky Mourning.
And we got to get to where this falls in our rankings, because I am torn.
Yeah.
I think we need to have a third,
Tyler.
This is actually, we were just talking about this because I'm actually working right now, quote unquote working while recording this podcast. Work from home, baby. Hopefully no one at work listens to this.
Yeah, what company do you work for? Why don't you tell people?
Let's not say that. But anyways, when we did Only the Dead, we saved our scorecard for when we had Tyler on, and we did a whole episode talking to Tyler. There's too much to do both the second half of this book and put our scorecard into it. I want to do the scorecard justice with this one because I want to get into a conversation about where this ranks. So let's reach out to Tyler, see if he can come on. Yeah. If not, we'll just come back and we'll do a whole episode on our scorecard, judge a book, limerick, that kind of stuff.
Tyler's on board, and it's tradition.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to get his thoughts. He's a Jack Carr super fan, one of the best in the biz. He actually even texted me and said, Whitefish, that area of Montana you traveled through and you knew about, one of his favorite places in the world. He said he'd move there in a heartbeat if he could. So we'll get him on. He's an insider. He knows the series in and out. We'll get his take. We'll do our scorecard. And sorry to make the people wait, we'll have a limerick for you. Okay. So giving us a little more time on a couple of those components. And even judging a book by the cover. Great cover on this one. We'll break it down with Tyler Boer in part 3. So more coming at you.
Before we get to that, before we get to the second half, we have one more giveaway. We are, again, rolling through the podcast, rolling through these giveaways. Thanks to Kevin B. What a mensch. He has a shot-through copy of Red Sky Mourning that he is willing to part with because he now has a personal signed copy because he was there with us at the Jack Carr book signing. So he's willing to give that away.
Yeah, as soon as this episode drops, we will post on all the socials how to get involved. Put your name in the hat. And we all know you have a copy of Red Sky Mourning because you read it, you loved it, glad you purchased it. In fact, you helped Jack Carr become #1 New York Times bestseller again.
#1, baby.
For print hardcover and combined print and ebooks. I knew that was happening. The buzz. Did your social media go crazy on publication day?
Oh, yeah. Big day. Big day.
I don't know about these big tech algorithms. And if you remember, Jack Carr's tagline on Danger Close podcast was help beat the big tech algorithms who want to silence voices of military, Second Amendment people. He was like, let's beat the big tech. I mean, he won because every social media channel I follow had nothing but Red Sky Mourning. I can't even tell you how many posts I saw the week this book came out. So Jack Carr's winning. Congrats on #1. But since you own a copy, give it to a friend. If you win the shot through copy from Kevin Bozarth and the Thriller podcast, you will now have 2. Go ahead and give one away because one of you might win the shot through copy from Kev. We will announce that winner when we come on with Tyler. Yeah. So listen to this episode, then stick around for part 3, our scorecard with Tyler, and you'll hear the winner of our social media contest.
Put it in a little library. Get a new Jack fan.
You want to know what I do with a lot of little libraries?
You just take books and don't put stuff back in?
No, I put our stickers in.
Oh, nice. Perfect. There you go.
Someone around Alexandria, Virginia is going to be like, what's this Thriller podcast I keep seeing? In my Nancy Drew book?
It's like I'm taking out copies of, I don't know, some kid's book and I'm replacing it with Andrews and Wilson, or Don Bentley.
We should start a campaign. We'll send anybody like 10 stickers. Go to your local library, and in every Vince Flynn book, put one of our stickers. In every Brad Thor book, put one of our bookmarks. Ooh, I'm going to go hit up all the DC area libraries and just, is that illegal? I'm going to drop our stickers in every Thriller book that I find.
We could run a contest to see if people can find where you give clues, like where you have to find the sticker, find a bookmark. That's a good idea for a promo.
I love that. That's great.
You know, you
That's
see
so
that
funny.
Jack, every time he goes to an airport, he signs copies of the book that are in the airport, like Hudson News or whatever. I want to know. I want to be there when if I was an author, I'm like, I walk up, like, do you just go up and pick up the book and start signing? Like, what if the cashier's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you got to buy that.
No, a bunch of people comment that when Jack Carr has those little videos, a bunch of people comment like, have you ever got caught? And I think he said no one's ever asked him what he's doing. But I think others, like maybe Brad Thor or somebody was also doing it. And he's like, yeah, occasionally the clerk will be like, what's going on here? And he'll explain. But yeah, definitely people ask that because I'm curious too. Yeah.
What if the guy's like, what you tell him the truth? Like, I'm the author. I wrote this. I was just signing it.
No,
He's like,
that's what they do.
I don't believe you're the author. You got to buy that book.
It doesn't matter if you are. You're defacing property.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, you got to buy that book.
It is vandalism. You are destroying someone else's property.
You get like just some guy has had a bad day. He's just trying to do his job.
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
We have like a whole Scotty Scheffler incident on our hands where Brad Thor goes to jail for a couple hours.
It would be a fantastic prank, and I could see David arranging this. Just have like a faux SWAT team or something all of a sudden come in and surround one of these authors for social media content. Just come in and like fake arrest them and take them down. Throw in like a flashbang as the authors signing books.
Oh my gosh.
We're going off the rails here, man.
That'd be funny.
We got too many good ideas here at 10 in the morning.
We do. This brings me back to when we were potting during COVID.
Oh,
because like I was working from home. You were also teaching from home, right? So
I was like recording between periods 2 and 4 on the virtual classes.
Yeah, this is great.
I'd like put the meeting on mute in the background.
I would record. I would then go golf for an hour. I would come back. I would maybe write a little bit. Then I have to go pick up the kids, and then, so yeah,
dude,
takes me back.
The schedule of those COVID days was just wild.
Is it strange that I miss them? Like it was a shitty time period, but we made the best of it. So,
dude, so much sucked, but looking back, there was a lot of good to come out of it in the sense of our friendship, my health, this podcast. I would be walking the neighborhood. I was out in nature infinitely more than I've been in decades. And it's just like, maybe we should learn something about the 9 to 5, 5 day a week kind of work week is not good for the human condition and human flourishing, but that's a side note.
All right. Part 2.
Let's get to what else? Speaking of human happiness and the human body.
Yeah, so essentially we can't finish the entire part 2 because we need to talk so much about this interrogation. So
we need a therapist. Can we get a licensed therapist on the line?
I had to pause the audiobook like halfway through because I was sick to my stomach.
That was gruesome, dude.
It was gruesome. And that was just the description part. When Jin had, the table is turned, James is captured, he's in the chair, and Jin is describing every single tactic that he uses against the Uyghurs, people in these concentration camps that they have. Right. Essentially saying, I'm going to do all of this to you. Then we double down on that, and Jack flips the table and begins to use all those tactics on him. The eye.
Which one was the worst to you? Oh, that's a bad question.
The penis. It's got. I'm a dude, so like it's got to be the penis.
Exactly.
You blow up the catheter only to rip it out before you deflate it.
Ooh. Oh my god! I don't want to see the Riverside clips of our faces for this.
I know we should have a warning. Warning.
The eye sounds pretty bad too, though.
Where so much so that and it seems to pop out really quickly.
Even not that when it's crushing the sinuses.
Oh yeah, when you put a bag up your sinus and then like inflate it.
When it's crushing the bones, the internal bones of like the sinuses. It gets the answers. They say interrogation works. I mean, enhanced. What is it? Enhanced interrogation.
Interrogation.
I mean, it gets the answers James needs. Gets the guy talking when he eventually says, the whole submarine, the data transfer. Sure, that was important. But what we're really after is the low Earth orbit satellites. And
so this is where the book kicks off.
Yeah, and I agree. It's a new book.
We come to find out that, this entire plot that we thought everything was about. It's yes, but like we have
it's a distraction,
something as a distraction because we have this whole other plot that we're unprivy to until now, and it takes everything up a level.
Sure.
They're on the clock because essentially at any point this crazy guy could send up this thing to destroy our satellite. Once we have that, once that's done, they're saying that decades,
for sure,
no one will be able to put up a satellite. And essentially, because they mentioned that China has invested in mid to high orbital satellites, because we've invested in all of our low orbital satellites, like Starlink, Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
So once all of those are gone with the description of the Kessler effect was kind of cool. I looked it up. That is true.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary to think that one bomb that like sends out all these golf balls can then like cause this cascade of.
Sure.
So couldn't you imagine that like an asteroid could do this exact same thing?
No, completely. But I would imagine from their trajectory, it's going to burn up in orbit. But for sure, let's say before it can burn up in orbit, let's say it knocks some sort of space junk apart that then spreads at just the right angle and velocity to then get in the way of other. Because that's the idea. It's going to be the debris from the first impact that each of those projectiles and then exponentially is causing debris
destroys
to hit other
satellites.
And it's like this chain reaction. And we already knew space junk is a problem. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of those visualizations mocking up where all the space junk is that we track and we have orbital records of and where it will be when and what path it's on. It's like you need quantum computing just to track all that stuff. Now you exponentially increase the amount of space junk interfering with our satellites. There ain't no way to get around it and navigate these things to stay in orbit and be safe. That was shocking. And what it does in the end is give China, with its mid to high orbital satellites that are safe, complete domination over communications, navigation, intelligence collection,
credit cards, banking
financial
information,
data. Mm-hmm. It basically tightens the noose around not only the world economy and global trade,
internet,
everything. Yeah, literally. It can render an Alice useless if you think about it. If Alice depends on the inputs that you get from the internet, yet now Alice can't be programmed using any sort of US technology to tap into the data of the internet, you have to rely on China for all that. It could render absolute chaos, pure chaos. It's probably one of the most threatening and diabolical scenarios I've seen from a thriller, because in the beginning it was like, this sub is going to launch nuclear war, even though they're not using real nukes, and then we'll respond with nukes. And then if we respond with nukes, they'll respond with nukes. And if the AI responds with nukes, our AI responds with nukes. I'm like, sure, that was exciting, but it was kind of as tried and true. Nukes are just going to start flying. Cold War scenario. This is different. This is, we're going to get you without nukes flying, without a physical attack on your homeland, without killing your people. We are simply going to take out your technological means, which run the internet for you. And that is just run GPS, right? Our military, I think now it's under Space Force, runs the GPS system. That's massive. And Jack's going for it.
Yeah, and then China will be poised to be the only player because they have the satellites that are above that. And, they will be able to, waltz right into Taiwan, allow their attack to happen, and then everything that render all of our defense systems completely useless. So if they wanted to, they could go attack us, or they could just offer sanctuary. Like they hold the ultimate trump card. The possibilities are limitless once they have this, have this happen. And you have just enough of a mad scientist, a crazy villain in the terms of heart, where like he wants to be on the cusp of this revolution. We even get that at the end where, his speech where James is like, can this be stopped? And he's like, no, you're not stopping anything. I will be remembered as the person who altered the course of history by setting off this rocket. And he's delusional. He believes that, he couldn't come up with something great, that he needs to destroy everything in order to be remembered,
Little man
in the world. Little man syndrome. Yes.
Yep.
Ultimately, it doesn't work. James saves the day, but how we get there. How we get there This shift in the plot to having this be the main focus drove me right back in.
Agreed.
Any doubt that I had from that middle part, what we just talked about in part 1, wiped away.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, how we get there, the Ox coming in.
Oh, dude, Ox.
And saving the day, and the turnaround interrogation on Jin, the Philippines mission, him going to this island, getting trapped in the tunnel, and his interactions with, he has this force where they're going on. He has Alice on his side. People are gunned down, and he decides, I'm going to be the lone one to stay on this island. Very much so. You said you haven't seen the last James Bond film.
I haven't. I know what happens, and yeah, again, we talked about the nod to Fleming earlier with Casino Royale and a lot of other things. Even this sequence is a nod to not Fleming's works, but the modern day Bond. Because yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know what happens, and it definitely is reminiscent of that. This stuff is incredible. I mean, the second Ox comes in and flips the interrogation, a new book begins. This could have been a separate book. I mean,
it could have been. And to think that it's so good. It's compact. I guess it's not that compact, but it's definitely like the last third of the novel.
Mm-hmm.
I would love it so much. I wanted more.
Same.
The parachute, the jump sequence, where we get the description of the chutes and like all that technical aspect that Jack brings into this with that kind of stuff, just great.
Yeah, and then they board that boat. Once he and Ox are in the water, they get with Grouper and I forget the other guy. That's a great little team up. And they all knew each other from prior missions. So you get the same old banter, right? You get the team up banter, the guys being guys. It's just firing on all cylinders. And we still get the tactical stuff because when he's in the tunnel, I know it's a little bit of a jump. When he's in that tunnel, which connects these islands, he's trying to chase that guy who he knows is ahead. He puts his gun with his light on the right side of the tunnel, and then he sneaks up against the left side of the wall so that when I think he throws a rock or something or whatever he throws, the guy's going to shoot back at the light on his weapon, which is on the other side of the tunnel, and he's safe concealing himself on the other side. That was incredible. Oh, and Ox's sacrifice. Dude, I thought Ox was dead when he jumped on the grenade.
Yeah, we have some sick action sequences when they're sort of storming the beach.
Yeah.
They're these, what are they, Peruvian or Ecuadorian mercenaries that Hart has hired with, his, I forget the name of his security, the MMA fighter guy who gets locked in the tunnel with
or
Reece.
Novak,
Perkins,
one of those two, yeah.
Novak is the general, right? The weak general.
Yeah.
But, and that in and of itself, I think is Jack's nod to sometimes some of the ineffective generals, how he saw in his time,
exactly.
How he wanted to sort of juxtapose that guy versus the actual operators, boots on the ground in sort of this team up that he has.
Completely.
These ultimate warriors who are, James essentially tells that when he meets up with him, tells him we are all we got. This is it. There's that we have to stop this missile. If not, there are other missiles coming inbound to take it out. So we either get it, stop it and get out, or we have to die trying, essentially.
Tip of the spear. Yeah.
All of this is being juxtaposed with these cuts to the Situation Room, which are great. We see President Olsen
talking to the Chinese president, Gao.
Talking to the Chinese president with her national security team. Alice being this omnipresent voice in the room.
Yo, when Alice goes bananas and goes to DEFCON 1.
That was insane.
God.
That was insane. And it's all because she emulated
Reece. The
and
revenge.
So when, all right, so he's attacking this with this team. They have to fall back because, Ox falls on the grenade, doesn't die, but is severely wounded. There's 2 other people that are wounded from bullets. They have to fall back.
Get him to the boat.
Alice tells them that, there's missiles coming, so they have to get off. But he decides, no, this is sort of his, the only way for them to survive is for me to be gone. So I'm going to sacrifice myself. And he tells his team, I'm staying. I'm going to stop this. You guys go. And this then sends him into the tunnel.
I think the line is, I'm not coming home.
Right.
When he drops that "I'm not coming back" line and runs off into the island, I'm like, holy shit. And there's like 20 minutes till impact. That line of "I'm not coming back" is unreal, because we already know he's thinking, did he put Katie in danger? Did he put the Hastings in danger? I think he's like literally in the mindset of, I'm going to die on this op, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And again, very much a call to the last James Bond movie, because that's essentially the exact same thing that happens. So he goes to this tunnel. Hart and the general decide to flood this tunnel with their security guy in there just to kill them both, get them off the thing. It's this very like cool, all the description of the sunken underground tunnels, how these islands are connected, and how it was all constructed with these Chinese engineers, like all that stuff was interesting and cool. And then James getting out of the tunnel, like the description of him fighting through it, having these visions, seeing Katie and Lucy again, and no, it's not your time to die. You got to push through. And ultimately he does. But before that, Alice registers like this, what is it? 100% chance that he's dead, or 99.9%. No, I think it is like 100% chance
Alice
that he's dead.
100%. Yeah.
And then that causes her to act like a James Reece and get that revenge. And essentially like, all right, the president had just down talked, sort of calm the situation with the Chinese president, said we're going to work together, calling his bluff, because she knows that it's all his fault that they're even in the situation.
Yep.
But then to have that turned on its head with, we go to DEFCON 1. She starts launching intercontinental.
They launch nukes. They're in the air.
Yeah, they start launching stuff. There's these cool descriptions of these, which Jack says either war projects that got canceled, or it's unsure what the status of them are, but these aircraft, unarmed aircraft that can be anywhere in the world in an hour. Really cool.
Yeah.
Launches B2s, B1s.
And Alice is doing all this on her own.
Everything that can be controlled. Essentially Overmatch, right?
Dude.
This is essentially Overmatch.
She has Overmatch, exactly. It's like she was in that fit of rage. It's funny to describe an AI as having these feelings, but it's a corollary to what we said in part 1, which was Alice already told Reece, I am becoming you. My thought processing, my patterns, my replication of human emotion and decision-making is based on you. So let's imagine you take James Reece and everything he's ever done in his life is like a digital download. You would want to program an AI with that, because you'd be like, rah, rah, save America. You'd be like, rah, rah, Navy SEAL, like amazing skill set, do anything, so patriotic. But that same digital download file of Reece also has all the terrible things he's done. Like it has this path of vengeance. It has Terminalist in it. So you are now programming a computer to be James Reece. And when Alice, all of a sudden, we see in the Situation Room, how are we at DEFCON 1? I didn't order that. How are nukes already being prepared and spinning up? I didn't order that. And it's because Alice is being Reece. Reece is essentially starting World War III in a digital format. The lessons we have to learn from that, just about tempering our emotions, having a cool head, and maybe vengeance isn't the best course of action. There's so many deep themes that can be explored with Alice's decision to do this. And if I didn't buy into like the AI versus AI or autonomous weapons yet, this gets me fully bought into thinking about, should this be the future? And if we're building this tech, it's Frankenstein, right? If we're doing this, what are the warnings? It's Jurassic Park. If we're going to bring them back, what's the cautionary tale we need to learn? Jack Carr literally, with this scene and this sequence, puts himself right up into the Mary Shelleys, the Michael Crichtons, with these kinds of warnings, the Orwellian even future. Especially when, speaking of Orwell, when he's saying like the Department of Defense used to be the Department of War. We just changed the name, but we're doing the same things, like political speak and language.
Double speak, yeah.
He's commenting on all of it. And it's in the throes of action with deadly consequences. And you know who rises to the occasion? I think President Olsen.
Yeah.
When she calls the Chinese premier and gives him the out, somebody on her staff, I think it's the Secretary of Defense,
I was just about to say this.
That was master diplomacy.
Yeah.
You, in that one short phone call, told him, we are attacking this Indonesian island because of your weapons and your screw up, but we understand it was a rogue element of the Chinese government and not necessarily your party and your political party. So, wink, wink, nod, nod. we will understand that this was all a mistake once we take out this Indonesian island and the fallout. You better help us cover because we know it was a rogue element doing that in bed with an American company. So we're kind of both at fault. We'll call it even. And then he buys it. That's perfect diplomacy. She gives him an out so the Chinese president doesn't, can save face in front of his people. And then at the same time, she has to call him back and be like, yeah,
remember everything I just said
with a nuke.
Yeah,
you might get hit with an American nuke.
We have an emotional AI on the loose who just took us to DEFCON 1 for the first time in our history. So
Jesus Christ.
I feel like everything that we wanted from Alice
came true
in the last couple books. We were like, oh, come on, like Jack, go there. He did. He finally did. Like, he fully embraced the AI. You did mention it. This whole thing that I was wanting the most, this Napoleon versus Alice thing. They have these rival things. It was both cool, but also a letdown when she just like kills him.
Yeah,
like
a little anticlimactic.
Very anticlimactic. But she has a little joke where she's like, they're like, wait, what? You killed him? Like, I thought you said it was going to take a while. I was like, yeah, it took me 2 seconds. That's a while for me.
That's
a whole 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That was kind of a letdown because I don't know, like
him.
Elba Industries kind of talked up their Napoleon. Other people were talking up Napoleon. I was assuming that there was going to be this AI versus AI. Maybe it was something that he wanted to have, and then ultimately he just decided to go this route. I don't know. At the same time, it both disappoints me, but is cool. But
it was fine. Yeah. And Napoleon was a younger, newer technology that wasn't fully online. Like it was said, it was not fully crafted. It was just ready to launch this attack. And
whereas Alice has been learning
exactly
over the years. So Alice is far superior. So
it's like the first mover thing. If you're the first mover in a tech space, that gives you a lot of weight. Alice was the first one. And with learning modules, that learning, the time to process data and learn these things, she had the leg up on Napoleon from the jump. So I agree. I was a little bit let down by that, but I don't think there's any plot holes there that truly, truly bother me. It was just kind of a letdown, like you said. Yeah. One other thing with AI, and authors have commented on this, if you go the AI route or you do something that's so super powerful, how do you get out of it? How does it just not dominate everything about your plot? Well, what I really like is since she emulated Reece, and we already know she's trying to train herself to be a human and think like him, when he's gone, that's when it goes haywire. So like if he's underwater, out of comms, she can't help. So the tunnel scene, or even going down into the hatch where Ox jumps on the grenade, you lose contact with Alice. So I think that from an author's perspective is a kind of way out of the AI can just do everything for our fighters, feed every bit of intel. We can't really write a compelling scene. To now, these guys are on their own. They're in the dark because they have no signals. I was wondering if there was some sort of repeater, they could take down and like drop on like every 5 steps or 10 steps down into a dungeon or down into the tunnel. You can set up this like repeater network so that you can have a constant signal even underground. I was wondering if that might be a kind of device where we can get Alice on board. But I like the idea that they lost comms with Alice for a little while. I think that took us back to just a straight up, like a Western. It's a straight up showdown where we didn't have to worry about the super OP tech.
But that's ultimately how she takes down Napoleon, because she's able to hack into these watches
exactly
that they didn't think about. Like, they purposely built this area where Napoleon is and where they're launching this missile. This what was the name of the missile? Something too, I forget.
Yeah, I don't remember.
They, built it so that way it was completely devoid of outside
signals.
Connections.
Yeah.
But ultimately their downfall was the hubris of having these, expensive watches that are real. They have like these Breitlings that have these emergency distress signals, and that's what allows her to both track where they are as well as get into the system. So that was cool.
Yeah, it was good. That was a good touch. It kind of completed the arc. Well, we got to get to the very ending then, because Reece saves the day. Pretty exciting what is it, a boat that he takes? And he's like, I can't stop the launch, but I can disrupt it.
Well, first he flies, and you knew that was going to come into play.
His flying lesson,
with
exactly.
Like there's a reason that they're showing him fly
with Liz,
because like, he's James Bond and he can do anything. So he gets in this plane, he's able to, call back to everything. But I like how he's James Bond, but he's also not, because James Bond would have been able to fly the plane and land it, whereas he can at least get it up in the air and then crashes it.
But we knew that from Liz, that he wasn't perfect in his pilot skills, because he gets distracted in the opening scene. So,
but I think that's being the writing of that is true to character, as opposed to being causing him to be an OP, like, oh, just because he took one flying lesson, or he can he can
land the plane perfectly.
He can fly. Yeah.
It was a crash landing. Yeah.
He has the altercation with the general, this pretty weak general, like essentially gets the drop on him, says he's gonna save him. Ultimately, that was a lie.
Yeah,
gets to Hart. Gets to Hart. We find out that he's not lying. There is no way to stop it via the computer. Kills Hart. Tells him that no one's gonna remember you, and then has some pretty intuitive ways to stop this. At first, he's thinking like, oh, I can use this welder to like cut, disrupt the thing. He's like, oh, I can't cut through that. So wait, it's on a barge. Let me cut the barge thing, and then I'm going to use a boat to ram it, and then turn it around and hightail it out of there.
I think oxygen tanks. He blows some oxygen tanks at one point.
Yeah. Essentially has a makeshift bomb in order to help him to get under that canopy that was used to hide it, causing it to explode. You can imagine this would be an awesome scene in a movie where he's riding out of this lagoon on a boat, and the missile is all caught. It's starting to launch, and as it does that, it just breaks up and explodes, and then that forces him to go forward or whatever, you know. So
right before that, though, he tells Alice, "I need you to do something for me." Love that little hint, because that takes us to the end. When we get to the CIA and they're having the ceremony in front of the wall and adding James's star, the whole time I'm like, what did he tell Alice? Like, there's something going on here. And I'm like, did you think he was dead? Let me ask you that.
Well, so because after he saves the day, he drives the boat, essentially gets off the boat, sits down on this at the edge of an island on a bench. There's a random bench somewhere, or somewhere.
Takes his implant out.
Is essentially waiting for the ICBMs to come and explode the thing, and saying I'm done. I'm just going to walk away.
He was resigned to it.
Alice is able to sort of bring him out of his thing and talk to him, and I didn't think he was dead, because I at that point I knew they were having something cooking. But we then jump immediately to them, having this memorial service at the CIA. Vic, the president, gives a great speech.
Yep.
Vic meets with Katie, gives her this, the Poe estate, tells him, this is what you need to do. Sorry about Reece. And then we go into this great epilogue of The Stranger, or of, it's very similar to the Kill Artist, where in Cornwall, that scene where Peel is looking at this newcomer.
Yeah.
These little kids, juxtapose these little kids that are watching this guy who's working out and does all these weird investigation, and why is he looking at these people? And he goes into the bar, but it takes him a couple of days to actually get into the bar because he's surveilling it. And it's funny because they're actually doing the surveillance. Does he know that they're watching him? It's kind of funny. And the whole time that it's him.
It's Reece. He likes Reece. Land Rovers.
Yeah, exactly.
He's taking on a Rhodesian accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's never said. This scene is so cool. You're right. It reminded me, we just finished The Kill Artist. Daniel Silva on Cornwall. He's this shadowy figure. They call him the Stranger. And here he's the Stranger, but eventually becomes the Sailor, which was really cool. How the local kids start calling him the Sailor. So many amazing things going on here. He's like this specter. It almost makes me think of Savage Son. And I love how Jack does this. He takes a random little short chapter or excerpt, and his style of writing becomes completely different. It almost takes on a poetry to itself. And the other time I remember it was Savage Son, when he was that specter in the night riding across Siberia, leaving food caches for the local people. And the local villages would put out things for him to pick up, supplies. And he was just going about Siberia as this ghost, and word was spreading. I love how that same style of writing, it's a very, very otherworldly kind of prose being used to describe this guy. And I just thought that scene, the writing of it, really stuck out to me. And Katie shows up and he's watching on a hill. He's kind of like collecting intel. He's wondering what's going on. And the final line is he starts driving down the hill. He's going to meet up with her. What
he
role
wanted
do
to
you
make
think?
he wanted to make sure that no one was watching Katie, right?
Exactly. He was tracking her. He's that sentinel in the night. Rafe had been that sentinel for him. And I just think that's such a powerful way to end it. They're going to be reunited. Do they choose to stay on this island? Do the Hastings even know if he's alive? Like, Katie obviously left. What reason did she give the Hastings for leaving? Does Vic know? Like, who did Alice tell that Reece is alive on this island? Was it just Katie? What about Vic? What about the Hastings? I need to know.
To me, I don't think Vic knows, because that's like too much of a loose end to allow him to know.
Yeah.
I do think that Jonathan and Reece know, because she has the typewriter when she comes.
That's true.
And, bringing it back to, we talked about the guy in Malta. It's like he goes to Malta because this is where that Rhodesian soldier that knew Jonathan set up his bar, and he's the one who takes him in. So I'm assuming that there was some sort of conduit between this guy and Jonathan to let him know that this is where James is.
Are you sure? Or was it just Alice telling
It could
Katie?
be. It could be.
And
we don't know.
And Jonathan gave her the typewriter because Reece is dead. Like, if he thinks Reece is dead, he's going to give it to Katie.
Yeah, I think that's the good part about the good job he does, is to sort of leave all these open questions. And, like when the next book comes out, which it will in a year, like, how is James going to be brought back in? Like, what who knows he's alive? Where the possibilities of where we can go from here are endless.
It's so open-ended. It's so... I think it's a brilliant move. I think the Malta scene, with all the impressive stuff we just talked about for an hour, I think the Malta scene is one of the most impressive. I think it's cool. It's just different. And it leads to all these questions. And we get the Poe estate. So does everyone think Katie maybe is just at the Poe estate because Vic hands her the letter that Poe left her the land, or left James the land, and then Vic did his secret squirrel silly business to make sure the land transfers to her, even though they weren't married. So does everyone think she's kind of hiding out there, and her and Alice do this secret mission to go to Malta? Oh, another question. Who is Alice going to emulate next?
Yeah, exactly. She mentions, like, to Reece,
I'll find somebody else.
I did this because I was emulating you. I realized that that's not the best way to go. I've toned it back. Like, I need to, like, sort of turn pivot. So who does she emulate next?
Vic Rodriguez.
I think that he's probably the logical case. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, is Alice going to become a mainstay going forward, or does that get too, is there some way you need to sort of pivot from that? I don't know.
Yeah. What does Alice do next? Now, does Alice learn from the same way Reece is learning and growing and has the influences of Tom, his dad, influences of Jonathan? The same way Reece has to internalize these messages and make the shift of what's next in his life. Does Alice have to do that too? Does Alice have to realize maybe picking one person and trying to be that one person didn't work out? Does Alice know her move to DEFCON 1 and to launch these nukes was an irrational decision? Right. Is Alice okay with that? What does Alice learn from that? There's more Alice in this story. There's more James in the story. There's more Hastings in the story. There's still everything to play for. This book, it satisfies, yet it leaves you wanting at the same time. Mm-hmm. Great book.
There's two other things that we kind of...
Yes, loose ends
that we mention that are kind of like a downfall, because one is the Hardings. Like, it was cool, the scene where Jonathan and Rafe, go on this super secret, no comms mission. You use an old truck that can't be tracked, so they can't be, to take out the Hardings.
Legends.
That was cool. Yeah. But the Hardings ended up not being that great of, like, these political side villains. Like, she was brought up in the beginning, but after that last meeting, we don't see her again, because they don't need it. They don't need her because everything gets escalated quicker than they realize. That they can't wait till the election. We have to strike now. So I guess I realized that. So the killing of them was, while it was cool, like that whole scene, ultimately the Hardings they kind of landed a little bit flat.
But it's not about them.
Yeah,
it's not. It's about Rafe and Jonathan. It's about Rafe and Jonathan.
Sure.
And the fact that they take those shots, I think that scene's more about that than cheering that the villain's dead. It was more about justice for those two, and let the Hastings be the Hastings, father and son going on a hunting trip, in Napa Valley. That was a great scene for Jonathan and Rafe. Did I care about the Hardings dying? Whatever. Sure. But I wanted to see Jonathan and Rafe have their day, and they had their day.
Yeah.
I thought the Hardings played their role when she was meeting with the Chinese representative. I thought that was
everything got escalated quicker than she was needed. So I realized that ultimately her plot had to pivot. So, but that doesn't mean that she had to stay alive. They had to get some revenge on that.
The idea that the Chinese could have had a mole in the Oval Office, that was compelling. That was compelling for a little while. I'm glad it didn't get that far, but the fact that was close to happening, I think raised the stakes. Yeah, it was in play. It raised the stakes. What'd you think about Max Gendrick?
I'm sort of torn on it. I thought it was cool, interesting to bring that character back, but I thought you had such a unique guy in terms of you could have brought him back at any point.
Sure.
And to use him now, I feel like you can't use him ever again. Maybe you could.
You could.
But I wanted his reintroduction to be... I was expecting more about his reintroduction. Again, it was perfectly fine. They use him to kill. He was scared shitless because Rafe, got the drop on him.
Exactly.
He's still killing, but he's not targeting any Americans or not doing anything too illegal. And he gets tapped to kill the one Chinese guy who is the sort of the conduit between in Europe, right? And that whole scene was done well, written very well. But I thought that Max Gendrick was going to be brought in differently, but I guess I should have been expecting it because he was mentioned earlier in the book. So
yeah, well, that's the thing that saves it for me is there were a few moments in the beginning when Reece is in Montana wondering, who's coming after us? Who went after
Max
Katie?
Gendrick? Yeah.
Is it Max? Is Max around the corner? Is he coming after us? I think he would have known the conversation he had with Rafe had with Max, how he wanted to recruit him. I think James even says, I know Rafe wants to recruit this guy, but I still don't trust him. So he's still on my radar. So Max was mentioned. Would I wish he had a better way to be woven into the story in a different way? Sure. I think it was okay. It's just tying up loose ends. The biggest issue I have with it is the timing. It kind of interrupted the flow of this great Langley scene with the president's speech. President Olson's speech at the CIA is phenomenal.
Yeah.
In the scorecard, I actually might bring that up as something big. Might want to read a quote from that. But I felt like it interrupted the flow from the Langley speech to Vic telling Katie about the Poe estate to the stranger, the sailor scene on Malta. I feel like that would have been just such a nice flow that the little, tie up loose end side stories of the Hastings and Max Gendrick killing the Chinese and the Hardings kind of was just ill placed in that it took us out of that sequence a little bit. Glad it happened. Could it have opened the next book? Maybe. That could have been a choice. Is it good we put a loose end on those threads? Yes, I think that's great. Because we'd be thinking, does Reece have to go get these people now?
Right.
The Hardings are still gunning for the White House. This Chinese rogue guy is still trying to infiltrate the highest echelons of the government. So I'm like, you know what? We needed to do it. Maybe it was just in the wrong time and place, but I have no problem with it. It's not like it's going to knock down the scorecard.
Yeah, and I think it also allowed you as a literary tool to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief of where is James? He's actually gone, and then we cut to the next chapter of this description of this stranger on Malta, and you're like, oh, James is still alive,
Meanwhile, the other guys are tying up the loose ends. Maybe they think he's dead and they want to get the revenge. They want to close the loose ends. It doesn't have to be Reece. The other people are now in his stead doing that. Yeah, right. I like that. Thinking of it that way validates it for me. I really like that.
Yeah, as opposed to pushing it off to the next novel, because then you're thinking like you said, does James have to do this?
Yeah. So, or he randomly leaves Malta. The children on Malta are like, he was gone for 2 weeks. I wonder where he was. And it's like, oh, he was in Napa Valley taking a shot. Like, how'd he get there? So yeah, it works.
Dude, great book.
What a book. What a book.
Great book.
Can you see what I was saying? How I'm getting vibes of like Consent to Kill in just terms of not in the plotting, but in the epicness of this story.
Sure.
This story is an epic. It's an absolute epic.
I think so. And it's one of my favorites. Like
Agreed.
It's really good.
I wasn't
totality
sure
of this. I wasn't sure how it was going
Correct.
to go halfway through again. I mentioned that.
Correct.
But in its totality,
damn.
Very good book. Very well written. Very well thought out. Nice everything, So can't wait. Next time we'll cover the scorecard. We're going to have Tyler on, get his thoughts, do the judge a book by the cover.
Give you a limerick.
Give you
And a
our
giveaway.
free space and a giveaway. So
Red Sky Mourning, shot through, signed edition by Jack Carr. Love it.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
Go check out all of our other podcasts. So after the part 3, what should we tell our listeners that we're reading next?
So we need to come up with the reading list for the rest of 2024. The only
we've completed our but one book, right? We didn't read one book.
So the only thing we didn't cover was kind of like an add-on. We kind of tacked it on, which was TJ Newman's work, Falling and Drowning, which she now is announcing her 3rd book in that series. So I definitely want to come back to them, but that will be on our 2024 reading list. We'll have a little Brad Thor, because he's our next new release, coming out with Shadow of Doubt. And eventually, dude, I asked David when the arcs are coming, the advanced copies of Capture or Kill, and he said, quote, very soon.
I saw people on the ambassadors have already gotten their arcs. So,
but the first wave of ambassadors plus the media
have been chosen.
We're going to get Capture Kill Chris very soon, David says. I think in a matter of days, you and I will be holding the Don Bentley installment of the next Mitch Rapp book.
I'm upset. I'm going away today. I wish I could have had it for my trip to Montana. But
could have taken it to Maine. Montana?
Maine. I went to Montana last year.
You just got Montana on your mind.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so many to come. The next pod we'll finalize our next reading list going forward. And until then, got to thank our patrons, our Deputy Director, Sherry F., our Special Operator, Jason C., our Special Agents, Ben, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Peggy, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons of No Limits. Find us at thrillerpod.com, Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let James be James.